Hello, Malcolm. I'm excited to be with you today because we are going to talk about China's crackdown, and it's not exactly what you would expect.
It's the
Um,
crackdown on sad people. Sad
but
people
it's
go to jail.
also
Directly to jail. Sad people.
This is outrageous. Where are the armed men who come in to take the
Sad people.
away? Where are they? This kind of behavior is never tolerated. And
China.
they put you in jail right away. No trial, no nothing. Right to jail. You're playing music too loud? Right to jail. Right away.
it's also a crackdown on crazy rich Asians, which are my favorite.
Yes,
So
yes, sad people, rich people. They're basically like live the middle class. Like that is the aspiration we want on the internet.
you will be moderate.
Well, but not just that, because we're also going to go on, them disappearing gay people, them disappearing trans people, literally everything that they are shoving down the West right now, like everything that they are filling TikTok with, that their bots are hammering YouTube
Well, not
with.
anymore, apparently. Oh yeah.
Yeah, but this is no, YouTube still very badly affected by Chinese bots. This is what everything that we keep saying. This is what they're hitting us with. Within their own country, it's controlled. Their own citizens can't even voluntarily produce this kind of content.
And most people are familiar with this with TikTok. How like in the United States, TikTok is just sort of this toilet vortex of debauchery and distraction. And in China, it's like educational content.
Yeah, but the way that Lauai talked about this was, he said it's a form of informational asymmetric warfare. Within their own country, all of this stuff is banned. And I think the question that we're going to be coming to throughout this episode is this actually bad? Like the way that China is implementing this.
Yeah.
I know that we have like this idea around free speech maxing in the United States, but when other powers are actively and provably using these platforms to sow social discord within our country, do we need to address this, or is there benefit in addressing it the way that China is addressing it, and what are the downsides to addressing it the way that China is addressing it?
Yeah.
So get started, Simone.
Yeah. So first off, what really got me and where I first heard about this was the conspicuous consumption takedown, where all of a sudden these really treasured, famous Chinese people, just like not known to Americans, had their accounts taken down. So notable people were Wang Hongguanqing. Yes, I butchered that.
2.3 million followers.
Yeah, this guy was known for being China's Kim Kardashian. I'm sending you a picture of him looking fabulous in his outfits. I love his look. I'm kind of devastated that he's been taken down, because this means that I can't easily consume his content
those
anymore.
Outfits look ridiculous.
He looks like he's out of some crazy futuristic anime. His whole thing, aside from being China's Kim Kardashian, was that he became really famous for his claims of never leaving home with less than 1.4 million worth of clothing and jewelry, as well as owning 7 high-value properties, reportedly worth over 110 million US dollars. They were all located within this exclusive Beijing compound. He is really known for the lavish outfits, great examples that I sent to you, valuable jadeite jewelry, frequent visits to haute couture jewelry dealers, accompanied by his security team, which makes sense, because if you don't leave if like you're famous for not leaving the house and that amount of money, like
you're asking for. Yeah, well, I mean, I think what a lot of people don't realize is you build this up, building up fame like that, 2.3 million followers. Like, I'd be devastated if our followers just got wiped one day, right? Like, this is something you worked for years building up.
Well, and this is he's someone who, like, literally, I mean, this wasn't how he got his wealth. His wealth was from a family business in coal mining that was later invested into jadeite jewelry, which of course is why he has a lot of jadeite jewelry. And he's also launched his own luxury boutique, but he's been very explicit about, like, no, I want to be famous. I want to be an influencer, and China just pulled the rug away.
There's other people, by the way, I don't know if you saw this one. They were
Sister Abalone.
No, the one who got disappeared for giving money to poor people.
I don't know this one.
Yeah, so there was a guy who was sort of doing like what Mr. Beast was doing, but in China, where he would, ask poor people who had recently bought groceries you know, how much did you spend on that? And then he'd pay them back for it and get sort of their life story. And he had built up, I think it was millions of followers. And
he's redistributing wealth though. This is part of
but Xi Jinping declared that there are no poor people in China. He was very pro the state. And the thing that they finally disappeared him over, and I mean disappeared, they didn't just take him off social media. You now can't search his name or anything like that, right? He's likely in a detainment facility somewhere. He had somebody come on his channel during a live stream and ask him if he shot Xi Jinping was a dictator. And he immediately cut the video. He then went on a rant about how crazy this guy was and the government should look him up and arrest him.
He's towing the line
to the public. Exactly. Disappears the next day.
Just getting there.
我想说，你认为习他是一个独裁者吗？
我操，这种人严重违反直播规范啊！这种人严重违反直播规范，我第一时间给他挂掉。这种人疯了吧？这种人是不是疯了？我的天哪，这种人太可怕了！这种人肯定有人找他的，这种人肯定有人找他，这种人疯掉了，这种人。你怎么能违反直播规范呢？我的天哪！我第一时间给他挂掉了啊！这种人，你自己承担自己的法律后果。我的天哪！这种人太可怕了！这种人。
This didn't just happen to him. This happened to another guy who disappeared. This other guy had like, I think 500,000 followers. And he was bantering with some kid, you know, like an actual child, right? Like they were doing like video game banter. And at one point he's like, who do you think you are? And the kid's like, well, my dad will beat you up. And then the guy was like, who's your dad? And the kid said, Xi Jinping. And then the guy just like stops talking and like it gets this like scared look at the camera. And the next day he disappears as well. His dad was obviously not Xi Jinping. He made a joke, but you can't make a joke about Xi Jinping. And
One
the
does
kid
not
was
joke.
a kid and didn't realize that.
Oh,
and
boy.
so, you know, the level of these people aren't just disappearing from the internet, but they're often actually disappearing and unsearchable after this happens.
That is terrifying.
But continue.
Yeah, I was thinking in this case about just these conspicuous consumption.
Were you thinking about the Apple guy, the guy who now they're putting his face on Apple phones across stores around the world?
No.
Okay, well, we'll get to that later because this is another instance.
I'm sad about Sister Abalone.
Sister Abalone.
She's known for. She's actually an older woman, so she was really. I was like, oh, this is so cool! Like an influential, like fashionable old woman. She had over 2 million followers on Douyin, and she had this lavish Macau estate that had private gardens and courtyards and a golf course, and she wore lots of jade jewelry, and she would document her lifestyle, eating really expensive food. Hence, Sister Abalone. There's also Mr. Bo, who was all about like the fancy clothes and. A lot of dogs in his videos, and he'd wear his dogs in fancy purses. And it's so interesting to me because in the United States and probably other places like Western countries, this like almost fetishization of crazy rich Asians who just have insane conspicuous consumption is so high. And even some of the new most famous, just not because they're Asian, but just because they're rich influencers do happen to be Asian. Oh God, why am I blanking on her name? Becca Bloom. Okay, so there's this new influencer that basically this year in 2025 came on the scene in the United States. She's a Silicon Valley background. Like I think her mansion is in Atherton, Malcolm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So like Silicon Valley parents, like in tech, and she herself is, I think, working in finance, probably investing, but she suddenly became this beloved influencer, specifically just for being wealthy. And like she shows off her jewelry. She just got married. So she had this amazing lavish marriage, and she'll show off the insane like desserts that she serves to her dog that are more than like what we would be able to afford for like a very, very special holiday meal for our entire family, extended family, that kind of thing. And she's here. And it's just so crazy to me, this contrast of like this celebration of it in the United States, and it often centering around Asian influencers, and then them just being apparently quite trounced in China. But what makes this so much more interesting is also, as you pointed out, the lying flat takedown. And then the New York Times recently covered this, which is basically a very new 2-month campaign. And it turns out that these campaigns are related. Did you know that? The takedown of both the depressing people and of the rich people. It's part of, so both of them have been executed by the Cyberspace Administration of China, which I love that they have.
We need one of those. Continue. Okay, so how are they connected?
It's just literally the internet police. So I think the American version of it has to be the internet police for obvious reasons. And if you're too young to know that reference, then I'm sad for you.
Yeah, right. We'll backtrace them, but in China they actually do. Like,
no, that's the thing. They have the internet police, and they will backtrace you. I love it so much. But yeah, so they're both part of this larger common prosperity initiative, and it's a broad set of measures. It's policy, and it's like literal, like fiscal, economic, government legislative policy, and social initiatives that's measured at reducing inequality, improving social services, and fostering balanced development across regions and population groups. So literally, this is it is about sort of forcing people into moderation and some middle ground. So you can't work too little, but you can't work too much. You can't be too rich, but you can't be too poor. And what we're talking about here with the taking down the depressing social media influencers, but also the Kim Kardashian hyperconsumption social media influencers, is just the social elements. So they're trying to promote what they call spiritual prosperity, as well as material prosperity, where they have policies aimed at social stability and national morale and positive cultural values, which is why they're trying to fight like cynicism, but also the hyperconsumerism. And they believe that there are also additional like things that they're taking out is entertainment and celebrity culture. So I think that might help to explain why their Mr. Beast like person was taken out, because they literally don't want like entertainment culture. That is another one of them. So they're trying to get rid of consumerism, pessimism, entertainment culture, and celebrity culture.
And gay stuff.
Well,
by the way.
Yeah, so is Russia, though. I mean, like, everyone wants to get rid of gay stuff. I don't know why.
Right, so in 2023, there were massive shutdowns of the Beijing LGBT Center, the PLGA China, the University Queer Societies were abruptly deleted in 2021, and again in 2023. And then the CAC ordered the closure of WeChat profiles of Beijing Lana Solana, lesbian networking, and Wudahung, youth LGBT plus group, and trans story, transgender support networks, as well as others like the Flying Cat Brotherhood.
That sounds amazing. See, these are travesties. All these amazing influencers and groups that just sound.
But hold on. But what's funny is these are the people who, like, on TikTok and everything like that, think China is their friend. Like, they're like, oh, China, what a great place to be gay, to be queer, to.
Yeah, they're nationalistic. They're just, unfortunately, they're not welcome.
There was a movie, a queer-themed movie filmed called Together, which was digitally edited to turn a same-sex couple into a heterosexual couple. And then they tried to like share the movie secretly online, unedited parts of it. And I think there was arrests over that. One student organizer, a trans activist, had her WeChat history scrubbed. And I actually have a list of, I think, erases here. Oh, yeah. I mean, if you're talking about small things, because it's not just the stuff that you're talking about, it's also like criticizing celebrities can get you arrested.
Criticizing celebrities.
Yeah, Wu Shu in September 2025 had an account with 50,000 followers, and they had all their posts erased for hyping a celebrity's breakup, e.g., vague a star or drama post.
I think that's part of the celebrity culture crackdown, though. It's just they don't want celebrity gossip.
October 2025, a post that ended up getting reposted 600 times got a user removed because it was a quote unquote personal update, but the personal update involved financial hardship due to traffic fines.
Oh dear.
Yeah, so it's little things like this that are getting people removed.
But I think it's bigger things too, though. And I'd love to read a little bit from the New York Times article about the lying flat style.
Okay, go for it.
because this is one of the bigger trends that we've covered more on the podcast. And I've really been
aware lying flat is the movement where people protest through not working or engaging within the Chinese economy and just trying to earn what they need to survive.
And I had come to view this as something that was like insurmountable, like that there would be this was the one way you could actually resist the Chinese government. And so I'm really interested to see how it plays out for the Chinese government to resist this. Because like the whole point with lying flat is like, well, you can't stop me from this, you know?
Yeah,
so
but they can. You'd be surprised.
Apparently, yeah. And so that's why I wanted to dig into this.
Well, I mean, they're basically saying you cannot get out of the rat race. The rat race is why you exist.
Yeah, get back on that freaking treadmill.
Chinese person, get back on the treadmill.
So the New York Times, it just released this. We're recording this on Friday. Maybe we'll run it Monday or Tuesday, but cheer up or else. China cracks down on the haters and cynics. As China struggles with economic discontent, internet censors are silencing those who voice doubts about work, marriage, or simply sigh too loudly online, which is can you imagine this happening in America where like 90% of social media is either conspicuous hyperconsumption, like all the restock videos, all the like holiday decoration videos, all of the, clothing, whatever. And then I hate the government, I hate my life, I'm depressed, I'm disabled videos. Like what would our social media even be? That's what I kind of wonder what's left. Anyway, China's censors are moving to stamp out more than just political dissent online. Now they're targeting the public mood itself, punishing bloggers and influencers whose weary posts are resonating widely in a country where optimism is fraying. The authorities have punished 2 bloggers who advocated for a life of less work and less pressure, an influencer who said that it made financial sense not to marry and have children, and a commentator known for bluntly observing that China still lags behind Western countries in terms of quality.
She said it makes financial sense to not marry and have kids, and they're getting rid of her. I think this is what people imagine if we had total power in America, what social media would be like.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. I mean, I think like we toe the line so heavily on cultural sovereignty when we're like, yeah, don't get married and have kids. You're clearly not up for it. What do you see?
Somebody is driving into our neighbor's yard without appearing to slow down. I mean, they're slowing down a little. What are they doing?
Well, I saw a car in front of his yard, like right in front of their house earlier, and he was standing out. That our neighbor was standing out in front of his phone. So I think there's
somebody who they know.
Intentional, yeah. These supposed cynics and skeptics, 2 of whom had tens of millions of followers, have had their accounts suspended or banned in recent weeks as China's internet regulator conducts new cleanup of Chinese social media. The 2-month campaign launched by the Cyberspace Administration of China, aka the Internet Police, as far as I'm concerned, in late September is aimed at purging content that incites excessively pessimistic sentiment and panic or promotes defeatist ideas such as hard work is useless, according to a notice from the agency.
Which a lot of Chinese people, you can see our episode on this, believe.
Mm-hmm. In reality, we all experience fatigue and anxiety as a result of work and life, but these real emotions deserve respect and should not be deliberately amplified for traffic. The internet is not a dumping ground for negativity, Chinese state broadcaster CCTV said in an editorial about the campaign. I love that. They're like, stop whining, basically. Grow up. Around the world, officials debate how to keep social media from stoking outrage and polarization that could spill over into real-world violence or harm. The internet regulator in China has framed its campaign in similar terms, expressing concern about messages that stoke divisions based on gender or other group identities, live streaming content that glorifies self-harm and violence. But
so basically, they'd outlaw like the manosphere and like feminist stuff, I would
assume. So, God, yeah, but that's the other like 5%, right? So if 90% is whining and hyper-consumerism, then like 5%'s manosphere, womanosphere, queerosphere. That's gone too. What is left?
Well, I would sacrifice the manosphere to if the feminist side of things also disappeared at the same time.
I feel like maybe the manosphere would sacrifice itself just to get them to shut up.
Yes, I just like shut up with this gender nonsense.
Yeah, seriously. But China's crackdown carries a distinctly political undercurrent. It demonstrates the concern among its leadership about the spread of malaise as the country grapples with economic uncertainty, a volatile rivalry with the United States, and growing disenchantment among young people. In recent years, some young people have opted out of the rat race in favor of the minimal life of lying flat, or given up on goals altogether and letting it rot, which apparently is another one of the phrases that's come out. The accounts of 2 bloggers known for promoting a minimal lying flat lifestyle were blocked from adding followers late last month. And that's an interesting, sophisticated way of doing it, just like capping your upside.
No more followers. I mean, I love that because, you know, you as a follower might not realize something has happened. I mean, obviously the blogger knows something has happened and they've got to like decide how they're going to structure their lives, because, you know, that's their income stream and everything, right? But the followers themselves wouldn't immediately realize that they had been blocked or disappeared.
And this is framed as obviously very dystopian, but the same thing essentially happened on pre-Elon Musk Twitter. People were essentially shadow banned and they couldn't add more followers. Actually, you know, a lot of people right now are complaining, people who have smaller follower counts like us, are arguing on X that like basically with the algorithm, they have no choice. Like they have no choice or option, ability to grow. So as much as it's like, oh, China evil, China bad, kind of like this happens everywhere. And sometimes it's not even a political thing.
So why are they saying this on X? Are they just saying like the way the algorithm works? Or are they're
just saying like basically with current algorithm updates, small fries have no chance of growing. Yeah, interesting. So, I mean, just to say, I'm just trying to add some perspective. Anyway, Beijing is concerned that such pessimism doesn't just discourage citizens from being productive members of society, it could run into criticism of the ruling Communist Party. The root cause is deteriorating economic and social perspectives for many Chinese, which has led to what a country would be in a natural social response, the expression of anxiety and misgiving, said David Bondursky, the director of the China Media Project, a research group. Such sentiment, the leadership worries, might be infectious, Mr. Bondursky said. Local governments and social media platforms have jumped into action to carry out the regulator's orders. In the city of Chengdu in central China, officials said 2 social media account users were investigated for portraying the city in an unflattering light. And I just like
imagine you were today, like imagine if like for the San Francisco Poo Maps or something,
or
like
we got to take you down.
LA sucks and traffic is terrible. You know,
you can't post about that anymore. Yeah, you're not allowed into LA anymore. You're banned. You're shadow banned from LA.
Being such a downer about how terrible LA is. No, and before we go further, I mean, for me, this is why I do not think it's a good idea, even if broadly it's a good thing to try to monitor social media, because you're like, well, on the whole, it's probably doing more good than harm by removing these unrealistic lifestyles, by removing a lot of the downer nihilist posts, a lot of the
because I mean, we've seen people whose lives have been ruined by doomer influencers.
Right. But I mean, I think that at the end of the day, what's going to happen is China is going to suffer from this because they are not building up the same mimetic and social immunity to this that we're building up in the West.
Agreed. And I think also that a degree of criticism is necessary. I mean, the article also points to an internet regulator in Xi'an, another place in China, where they're taking down people for spreading false information about housing prices and real estate regulations. But are they really spreading false information? Like sometimes it's
probably accurate information. Yeah. You can't say the economy's bad. You know, that's what happens when you begin to give governments these sorts of powers.
Yeah.
And the way that they're using it at the local level for like inter-community fights is a really big thing. And they're even using this against like hardline nationalists.
And that's what really gets me is so to go back to this common prosperity initiative, key policies and areas of the actual like the more legislative economic things is education reform. So they're cracking down on for-profit private tutoring services. They're trying to focus more on income distribution through tax policy and social insurance. They're trying to fix housing policy by making housing more accessible to low and middle income families. They're trying to improve healthcare. They're trying to revitalize rural areas. They're trying to fix labor and tech regulations to address exploitative labor conditions. Yeah. They're doing environmental things. So I'm just like, there are a lot of really good things that are happening, but then what's happening is, like, for example, on Weibo, more than 1,200 accounts were suspended for spreading rumors about the economy and government welfare programs. But as you pointed out, like with the CCP, there are a lot of adverse incentives that would prevent information about corruption from making it to the higher echelons of the CCP. And I kind of see social media as a way to circumvent that. Like if people can surface fraud that is taking place with social welfare programs, for example, or with housing policy, then they can address it and actually execute on this broad and actually like good sounding common prosperity initiative. But if instead these cities have this mandate and right apparently to take down this false information, then they won't even be able to execute on the common prosperity initiative. So I feel like in some ways it's like to your point, right? It's well intentioned, but it's not going to work the way that they want it to.
Yeah.
So it's kind of scary.
Well, no, but I think that so one, it ends up being used, and this is one of the problems in these big China bureaucrat things. You know, I have friends, and I guess I should talk about the fate of China more broadly as a result of this, where they, you know, listeners have reached out and they've been like, have you changed your position on China? Like, do you think it has a shot now? Like, you know, they're like, I know you see China as this giant bureaucracy, but is not the US full of a lot of bureaucracies that are breaking down and incompetent? And my, you know, through its authoritarian nature, China might be able to fix something about where the world is heading or what's going to happen. And unfortunately, the broad answer is extremely unlikely unless AI somehow acts as a solution for them. So I'll explain to you why it's unlikely. If you studied the history of China, which I'm very interested in as a subject I spend a lot of time studying, China really only gained its current economic dynamism because it began to loosen state control, because it began to allow for private, not really ownership, but 99-year leases that nobody really believed that they were going to get rid of. We know nobody believed they would get rid of it because the houses aren't priced differently based on how long into the lease they are, which implies that there is a broad social understanding that they would be renewed. But the point here being is China, you know, basically makes private land ownership legal in regions. China makes private companies legal. China, you know, loosens a lot of stuff. And this brings in outside investment, and this creates a degree of dynamism that led China to become a world power, while other quote unquote communist countries, whether it be, you know, North Korea or, you know, the Soviet Union, never really were able to be. Now, if you look at the direction that China is going right now, especially if you look at the hypotheses that people have around how China could fix its current scenario, the hypotheses are all, well, what China needs to do to fix things is it needs to reconsolidate and it needs to exercise its centralized authority. But the problem is the more China moves in that direction, the less it will have the only reason it has economic relevance on a global stage at all. And this is why we are seeing that economic relevance contract. Not only that, but it doesn't even really have a role in sort of the global supply chain going forwards.
Well, isn't it trying? It tried to create that role, and it tried to create alternate networks through the Belt and Road Initiative. Why do you discount that?
Well, so the Belt and Road Initiative is not what people think it is, at least in terms of function. The Belt and Road Initiative has become a way for Chinese elites to smuggle money out of the country. It's not actually building up goodwill in the regions where it's operating. And they're doing things like, oh, we'll get this region in a debt trap, and then we'll get this port, and then we'll get access to X. And it's like, yeah, you can have contracts for all that until the next revolution, and you just quote unquote owned a port in Africa and you don't have that port anymore, or not meaningfully, right? And so a lot of this stuff is very much like things that the US tried in the past and learned why you don't do it. Like the Belt and Road Initiative is very similar to the US period of sort of like US colonialism, I guess you'd call it, when the US decided to go out and be sort of the world police. China is like, yes, but we're doing it nefarious style. That will certainly work. And it's like, no, it won't. It won't work. So you haven't seen, if you look at the results of the Belt and Road Initiative, a lot of actual meaningful goodwill out of like outside of super poor like African countries. That's goodwill doesn't actually matter except like in terms of UN votes. If you look at where China needs goodwill, where does it need goodwill, right? Like for where it could actually earn it. Okay, it's probably not going to win over Japan, right? But it could win over Vietnam and the Philippines, and oh, all these countries hate China now more than they ever have. Like that was the wins it could have had, was the Belt and Road that it didn't get. So for that reason, I see, one, China has basically a worse relationship with every one of the players that were up for grabs, I'd say 5 or 6 years ago. Now they're no longer really up for grabs. Two, the huge problem for China is, and they're no longer up for grabs. No, they went from being up for grabs to not up for grabs during the period of Belt and Road investment. Okay. If Belt and Road was working at all, that wouldn't have happened. Right? It doesn't matter if poor, irrelevant country that's about to have another revolution in Africa is your friend. You needed to get Vietnam and the Philippines on your side, and you effing failed. And keep in mind, China, Vietnam kicked your butt in a war not that long ago, okay? They kicked our butt too, but they're not our neighbors, all right? You actually need them to like you if you want to push. Next problem, their relationship with India has gotten worse. Other major neighbor, like every one of their neighbors effing hates them now. Like Russia is this close to like war with China, and the only reason we're not seeing more conflict there is because Russia's dependent on them because of the Ukraine sanctions, but China has overplayed its hand with them. They tried to do like a one currency thing and it ended up screwing over Russia. You don't need to get the specifics of it. It's just that China not doing great there. And then you've got the problem of how big the bureaucracy is. So if you look at like the United States, and we look at the inefficiency of the American bureaucracy, whether it's like the Navy or whether it's, you know, anything else that we have, China is that times 1,000. All right. And you can say they're putting X many billion into their new AI infrastructure. And it's like, but that infrastructure is going to be China's equivalent of managed by like our army, but like 100 times less efficient. And we are getting that with Microsoft and Oracle and Google and Facebook all competing against each other, which means that what we're going to produce is going to be astronomically more efficient in the AI space, right? Like, and investment dollars, why would you go into China with AI stuff when you can just go into the US and you don't need to worry about it being taken from you? But anyway.
So, I mean, what I'm curious about though is sort of what you think about the likely efficacy or not of this larger social media effort. And I mean, one, I just want to point out, like, China's not alone in doing this. We've already covered how Russia has banned in both mainstream media and on social media, not only gay stuff like gay, lesbian, bi, whatever, but also anything antinatalist, anything that promotes not having kids, like being a dink. Vietnam also has a lot of censorship. And it also floods social media with positive pro-state messaging. In Turkey, Iran, and Egypt, there are shutdowns, there are arrests, there are legal actions against influencers who spread messages that they don't think are helpful for the state. India, Brazil, and others have platform bans. So they'll just have legal takedown demands over any sort of like harmful social content. And even EU countries, they have regulation over what they call unfair market practices. And also misinformation, which of course could be real information that they just don't like. And some various authoritarian or even semi-authoritarian.
Right. And my thought on this is the exact thought I mentioned before. I think this will be very effective for a country like China in the short run. I think it's going to be very damaging to them in the long run.
And the EU, like, and so basically in all these countries, you think like this is a short-term fix, it's going to cause long-term damage.
Yes, as I have said, memes and cultures spread like viruses. Right? You'll have a movement like the feminist movement, or you'll have a movement like, you know, the trans phenomenon or something like that. Sometimes, like, do I think that trans is ever really going to spread within China? No, I think that that's going to be handled in the West before it had the time to really permeate China. But when I'm thinking of other phenomenon, and by the way, we could do a whole other episode on this, but like it's very interesting to see the people that are still clinging to like trans normalization when like even Blue Sky is like, no, we're not banning like transphobes anymore. Like we don't, like, even Blue Sky is like, yeah, you guys can screech at us that they're killing you, but we don't care anymore. Like you guys clearly just abused your power. But the problem is that the people who fall for this stuff, like Western nihilism and stuff like that, they are taken out of the cultural pool and they're taken out of the gene pool of the next generation. And then
like, let's just let this happen naturally. But I mean, I think even the nihilists who are suppressed in China, there will still be people who lie flat.
Yeah, there will still be, but I'm sort of viewing this the same way I view COVID, right? Like with COVID, we now know that the masks did nothing. They lowered short-term spread, but overall, because through lowering short-term spread, they increased the number of non-immune people who are around, the death rates over time in these regions were broadly the same. This we've seen in studies of European death rates in regions that were very strictly controlled around masks and regions that were not, and also in comparison between states that were strictly controlled and the states that were not strictly controlled within the United States. There just aren't, actually in the United States, the states that were less strictly controlled had lower overall death rates, but you could say that they're more rural. And I'm like, okay, great. Yeah, like that makes sense. But the larger point here being is that it didn't seem to work. And I think that what we're looking here are masks, but for your brain and your eyes and your ears. And this is why I'm so against, in that episode that, we ran today, right? Where I was like, you cannot beat this by restricting the social media your children have access to. You need to immunize them to these types of ideas, and that can only be done through information. It cannot.
So it would be better for Chinese officials to, as they do, right? They know how to flood the zone with content and comments to just shame the celebrity worship, the doomerism, the consumerism. That's what you would do if you were the CCP, is just make it embarrassing rather than censoring
Make it embarrassing. Produce state content about how it's embarrassing, making fun of them,
I feel like you also need to give something more, though. And I guess what I couldn't find from the research I did on this is, okay, what is China replacing this with? Because, okay, I can't be like minimalist and stoic. I also can't be hyper consumerist and like extra vitalistic. I have to be like, what? Nothing? Like, I can't be gay. I can't be a celebrity fan. Like, what can I be? I guess I don't know.
You can be a beige mom. That's what they want, is beige moms. They want
no, actually, the stereotype of beige moms is hyper consumeristic. So
I know, but what they mean is middle. What they want, and this is important. It's not consumerism that they're against. It's wealthy consumerism. They want everyone in the middle class rat race. That's what they're trying to do, is build blinders to anything other than the middle class.
Well, and they're also trying to build policy mechanisms, economic, educational, etc., that also make that possible. They're trying to redistribute income to create a thick middle class. I mean, I like the idea. Yeah, I mean, it's always interesting to watch China because they have the ability to do things in a more fast and blunt way.
And they always F it up.
That's the problem. And maybe it's, I mean, like you said, big lumbering bureaucracy doesn't help.
Every time they do something right, and this is what I was talking about when I'm talking about like putting these sorts of restrictions in, the restrictions get put in, and then like one district is using them in a battle against another district because you're trying to move up the communist hierarchy, and that's how that works, right? Like you end up turning the guns that you built against each other, right? But it's worse than that, because you look at something like China's bullet train system, like that was genuinely working. It was great. It was amazing. And you can watch the videos on YouTube about how it's going bankrupt and very dangerous to the country now, because
really?
It's great. And then they decided, well, then let's just like double, triple down on this. And they built a bunch of routes to areas that nobody uses. And so now the whole thing doesn't work anymore. And economically speaking, and we had this problem in the United States. I don't know if you know about that, but we actually had it was the way the airlines worked, because we initially tried to mandate the way airlines worked. It's a confusing history. I'm not going to get into it, but basically, we then released the mandates, and we moved to what's called a hub and spoke model. And the cost of flying in the United States went down like 15x or something. It was
because we let market forces essentially determine
it. But that's the problem with these centralized systems. And we're at a pivotal turning point in human history with AI, and China can't get around this just by building bigger data centers. And you can be like, oh no, of course they could. Look at all the money they have. The problem is if that money is on a 20x or 30x dilution spree, right? Because of the bureaucracy. And then in the United States, everybody knows AI is the future. And so every rich person wants to be involved in whatever AI thing is going to work. And so they're pouring money in. People are like, how is Amazon spending like like, I don't know, like 5 times the amount of money on building out their AI platform than they spent on like AWS in the last X many years. That's like their primary earning platform. And it's like, because everybody knows it's a future. So every dollar in the world that from like the ultra wealthy is just pouring into it like an infinite money spree.
Yeah.
Right. And except to China, because nobody wants to be involved in a state controlled infrastructure project. Well, nobody's smart.
All I can say then is I'm glad that we still in America have Becca Bloom. I think they're making a second Crazy Rich Asians, thank God. And we're just going to have to persist in this fantasy that China never cracked down on them. And that at least we have our American Crazy Rich Asians, because
well, I love
them. They do rich best. I feel like no one does rich better. Like rich Russians just still have houses that are super ugly on the outside and then like crazy on the inside. No, I want everything crazy.
No, rich Russians, they have a lot of like castles and stuff that they build in the forest in their like the warlord.
Yeah, but the stereotype is super ugly outside, super lavish inside.
There's the
like,
I was looking
it's just
at
depressing.
oh my god, I hate Middle Eastern wealth. It is so ugly, their sense of style.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Asian wealth is amazing, and European wealth, I mean, like old money is just like, you know, crumbling everything. It's not really
everything's falling apart because they don't have it anymore.
And American new money isn't that fun. So no, it has to be.
I disagree. I think American like Connecticut wealth can be pretty nice.
Oh, waspy old money.
Yeah.
But we were just talking though offline about how that's like pretty much over, that there are influencers who try to keep that aesthetic alive, some of which I love to follow on Instagram, but they're just doing it to hawk their Halloween sweaters and socks, and it's all a fantasy. Like, it's not real. No one actually goes yachting anymore. No one actually wears, you know.
Yeah, we know that the yacht industry is falling apart. I was watching a YouTube video on that recently. Not just yacht, but sailing more broadly. Like But you know, I love our aesthetic, the old stone house aesthetic. You know,
but that's not, you know, it's not an aspirational hyper consumeristic thing. So
I suppose it's not consumerist enough. But yeah, the closing point I was going to make is I really think China is just setting itself up for failure. And the point I was making earlier, which is so important for people to grok, is if the way that you think, like if your hypothesis is, well, China can manage things in a centralized top-down fashion, and that's how they're going to get around X problem, what you need to understand is every single dollar that China has right now, every great, like their entire civilizational rise in these last 30 years was because of deregulation. If you think the way they are going to get around one of their current problems
by tightening up
through re-centralization, what you are saying is they are going to go back to the economic relevance that they had 20, 30 years ago, because that economic relevance didn't come from like the Chinese people or something like that. They're not that different from the Vietnamese or the Thai or any of the other surrounding populations. It came from the fact that the government decentralized the economy. And China before this was truly economically irrelevant. And if you think that they're going to be able to, like, this is the thing where people think that like Saudi Arabia is going to make this like Neom city and it's going to be economically relevant.
Oh no, everyone knows Neom's never happening.
That's what China is doing with AI right now. They're making.
Oh, you think, okay, so you think China's AI is China's Neom?
Yeah. It's not like really supposed to work. It's supposed to look like it could work because that's how you move up in the CCP. And it's not that it's impossible that China could do something right. The problem is that Xi is the guy who's in charge right now, and Xi is completely incompetent.
How old is he? Let's see.
And unfortunately, he has a fear of anyone replacing him.
He's 72.
And so he's basically cleared anyone out of high levels of government who's competent and could replace him. And apparently there's like one guy who might be able to, but like China really needs to get rid of Xi soon if it wants to have any chance of getting out of the disaster that it's heading into right now. And I just don't see that happening. So
yeah, well,
but Belt and Road is not a success. Belt and Road, when people hear Belt and Road, they should think the opposite of a success, like an actual in the moment disaster of huge amounts of money flowing out of China for people who are just pocketing it and trying to escape before the ship sinks.
So we never get to visit China again. I hope you don't regret that. I at least got to travel a lot there, so that was nice. And I'm looking forward to hearing all the comments from our China experts who are going to vehemently disagree with us because they think China's just gonna kill it somehow.
Like, seriously, the delusion of that belief. Like, I can't even. I literally can't even. It's like the people who think the urban monoculture is going to somehow work out. I'm like, but look at the statistics. Look at the statistics. Look at the statistics.
Rufus is cracking his knuckles. Tim is stretching his hands out, getting ready for that keyboard. We see you. We see you. Yeah. Love you guys. And I love you, Malcolm. And I love Tex.
Yeah, oh yeah, Tex came home. Look at this. He's alive. Just came home a few hours ago.
Yeah, like literally.
They did another x-ray. He's no longer got holes in his lungs. So, you know, we got a healthy kid for now. I mean, SIDS can happen, high probability in the first, you know, few weeks and months.
Don't say that.
So, like, let's just get through this before we truly celebrate.
Yeah, he's not going to be more than like 15 inches away from me for the next like 6 months, basically.
Yeah, putting an oxygen.
We got a foot oxygen cuff. I don't care about the false alarms it's going to give me and freak me out. I don't care. Okay, you know what? I don't need to sleep for the next
5 kids now, Simone. 5.
It's pretty great. Love you.
Hey, we're actual pronatalists now. That's like a number of kids. Like 4.
No, that's we've reached Catherine Pacolic qualifications because she, for Hannah's Children, only interviewed college-educated women who had more than like 5 or more children. So I didn't qualify as a mother, you know, before that. Now I do. I'm a Pacolic mother, and that's saying a lot. She had 8 of her own and then raised 16 total. So we'll get there. Gosh, she's so amazing. What a woman. What a woman, Malcolm.
Do you think we can beat 8?
I hope. I would love to at least do 8. I mean, 7's obviously our bare minimum.
Well, I want to beat at least Kevin Dolan, and he's at 6.
Didn't he just make it to 7?
Oh, he did? Dang. Well, who can we beat? Have we beat Matt Walsh yet, at least? Let's see.
Thought he had 5. So maybe we're neck and neck with Matt Walsh. But all these people like got married super young. Oh.
Well, but they had 2 sets of twins. That's kind of cheating. Still.
Not really. You really go through it when you have twins. I mean, talk about NICU time.
Well, I have 1 donated kid, so I'm at 6, at least genetically speaking.
Yeah. But I want to raise a minimum of 7.
All right.
Hopefully 8, 12.
Love you, Simone.
I love you too. All
right. So what do people think of today's episode? Even though it did terribly for whatever reason. This was a 747 video on like the satanic Minecraft cult.
Yeah, I was surprised by that. Oh, noodle.
Who doesn't want to learn about a satanic Minecraft cult? Maybe our audience is just not interested in. I can actually have to look to see if the issue was watch time or it was click-through rate. The watch time was high, but the click-through rate was a little low.
Okay, give me a second.
So what did people have to say about it?
They liked it. A lot of people were sort of like, this is my approach to social media, which I think was good to hear.
Yeah.
I think you saw the comment on Original Sin, which I thought was interesting.
Oh yeah, I like that one. I gave it like
this idea that like, you know, actually not all people are good as it happens. And that's so true because I was kind of raised to believe that all people, I mean, my parents were like, yeah, there are a few people out there who aren't good, but I don't know. I was kind of just given the impression societally that you can just trust people and everyone's good and it's going to be fine. And that led to problems. That wasn't
for you. Yeah. Yes. Well, I think that's a really toxic thing to teach young people. You know, I think viewing society adversarially is quite useful in terms of navigating it successfully.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll kick us off though. I think it was a great episode. I think maybe it'll do well on the long tail. We'll see. But yeah. Oh well. Next week will be a better week. And hopefully this will do it.
All right. Well, I'll let you get started on this one.
Okay.
And I've pulled up some data too that I can also go over.
Yeah. All right.
Torsten, are you lost? Come on, let's keep looking. Titan to Octavian. Okay.
Go for there.
Do you think maybe you need to go under there?
Yeah, go there. I think that's the exit. Is it this way? Yeah, I got the
Torsten, stay here.